3, 2, 1. Looks like we're live. What's going on, Print fam? It's your boy Cam. Before we get started, I'm going to do it without further ado. This time I'm not going to dink around a lot in the wait screen. You guys know the routine, man. Before when I bring the guest in, let us know if the levels are sounding okay and all this and that, just so we know if there's any technical difficulties. I'm not going to ask when the show starts. Let's go ahead and get started and roll that intro. Better work. Didn't work. Again, didn't work. So, we're just going to move right into me. What's going on, Print fam? It's your boy Cam. Intro didn't work. Second time in a row. It's all good, though. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Print Life Live video podcast, where we talk screen print news, and then we talk screen print business. And at the end of all that, we do our best to answer your screen print questions. Today's guest, he's, first off, clutch player. Hit him up last minute. He rushed back to his house so that he could get on Skype and actually do the call. So shout out to him for that. Everyone make sure to thank him in the comments at the end of the video for getting here in a clutch. But I met this guest shortly after starting my YouTube channel. He took it upon himself to show up at the shop with a box full of delicious treats in the form of an RFU system and all kinds of different white pigments and all this and that. It was beautiful. But to be very, very clear, I had been using Matsui because my local supplier, Advanced Screen, carried them. So I got started. They were the first water-based product I started with. And now Multicraft is carrying them. Both great suppliers. Both ship nationwide. Advanced Screen Technology, Multicraft. Hit either of them up. But he brought me this incredible system. And as I was able to talk to him, I learned that he just had a lot of insight into the world of water-based printing, shit that I had never heard of. Most of the stuff, if I have a complex question, this is the man that I hit up. So I'm super happy and excited just to have him here and to be able to just siphon as much knowledge from him as I can and take it in for myself. And hopefully, if y'all are actually paying attention, you can take something from him as well. So let's, without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Jesse Martinez from Matsui Inc. Jesse, thank you so much for joining in, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Cam, and pleasure to be here, and looking forward to talking to you today.
Dude,
and everybody else out there.
Dude, I appreciate it, man. When I called you about an hour ago, you were over at Multicraft, right?
Correct. I had scheduled some training with them. They're very excited about carrying water-based now, and they're doing a really good job at promoting it. Like you mentioned earlier, we have two very good distributors here in Arizona, and AST, Advanced Screen Technologies, and Multicraft. And quite honestly, Arizona is one of those states where everybody says you'll never be able to do water-based in Arizona.
Yeah.
And my goal is to get majority of the printers here printing water-based, so I can use that as a reference.
So we're going to dive into that. And I know I've asked you a lot of questions with this in the past, but I'm going to re-ask them, just to make sure that we're sharing that knowledge with everybody else. But I think for me, before I actually go into some of the details, this is for me, but for everybody else watching, just a little bit of background from you. First off, you can keep it as short as you want to, but how you got into all this, and then what you would consider your specialty now in 2019.
So, Cam, my background in screen printing has always been technical. I think like everybody else in our industry, we get in this industry by accident. And it's like the mafia, once you're in, you can't get out. Yeah, So my strengths in the industry come from working at manufacturers or with manufacturers like Murakami and Matsui. And I did dabble a little bit into distribution. I also worked with Scott Fresner at US Screenprint when he got into the DTG printing. And then I ventured off into my own business for a while, trying to take over what US Screenprint had in the film and software business. But it got very competitive in that business, and then with all the direct-to-screens as well. So I decided to join Matsui, and I want to say that the reason I did that was because of what I learned with Scott Fresner at US Screenprint, and what I seen was coming from the DTG markets.
Interesting.
Um, that was water based, you know,
Yeah.
and it was amazing what these machines could do. I mean, I could go to multiple trade shows and see these machines operate day in and day out, and I'd be amazed by every single print that would come out of it. So,
Huh.
you know, screen printers might have not been ready for that,
You're right.
um, but I did see water based as an opportunity to introduce screen printers into DTG printing and higher quality prints.
Well,
So that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
would you say that specifically within the world of water based, but inks in general, so it sounds to me like you actually have a firm knowledge base in the world of the chemistry involved in all this and why it's important to do it this way or that way, right? The chemistry is the difference. Is that correct? Is that correct?
Well, I want to say the chemistry is always important and understanding why,
Right.
you know, but keep in mind, water base is what we started with, you know, and plastisol was later introduced, and the only country really that gave into plastisol printing is the U.S. market because it was easy, you know. Labor is much more expensive here in the U.S., so it kind of made sense for the U.S. market because other countries, labor wasn't as expensive. So the struggles that people had with water-based 20, 30 years ago, you know, they could adapt to it. Here in the U.S. was a little bit tougher. So to stay competitive, plastisol was a really good solution for the U.S. market.
Okay.
But things have changed since.
So I guess I just trying to understand from my point of view, just because like, so what is the transition from DTG to like water-based screen printing? Is it because DTG actually uses water-based inks? That's why it was like a logical transition for you?
So I want to say DTG was designed to print on paper.
Right.
Okay. They do a very good job printing using only CMYK and over white underbase, where, you know, seeing that on a textile is very impressive. And in screen printing for a long time, they said, you can't do that, you know? So the fact that you can show screen printers that you can achieve a better quality, and let's just call it a 4-color process on a dark shirt by using water base instead of plastisol, that opens a whole new game and a new offering for screen printers to offer their customers and maybe be able to make more money in their business.
Interesting.
Well.
Oh, well, damn. Well, dude, and then again, dude, sometimes I'm just riffing. Sometimes I'm going to go completely off script here. So,
No worries.
are there issues, like if you wanted to print with bigger, you hear it all the time, like HSA approvals and HSA regulations and all this kind of shit. If you were going to go with a company like a larger brand that stayed HSA compliant, would you have to print even if it was like simulated or CMYK with a water-based ink? Are you familiar with any of those rules and regulations?
So you're talking about restrictions
Yeah,
that
like
certain brands, you know, and requirements?
right, like you hear it specifically with Nike and stuff like that, right?
Correct. You know, again, there's certain brands out there that have certain requirements and trying to meet certain standards. For majority of them, it's just really being phthalate free, lead free, and PVC free.
Okay.
Okay. So being PVC free, there's a lot of systems that will comply being PVC free.
Okay.
You know, you have your acrysols, which are your PVC free plastisols. You have your water-based high solid acrylics. And you have silicone, okay, out there as well. So as you can see, there's different systems out there available, but then it comes down to the quality of the product, how it looks on their product, cost.
Okay.
You know, cost is always an issue. So you compare all those solutions out there and what makes the most sense. And I think for a lot of these brands, water-based has made the most sense, or high solid acrylics have made the most sense.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
That's what is that what, see that dude, that's the beautiful thing. You hear all these terms, dude, but HSA means high solid acrylics. That's all it means.
Yes. So there is right now, I think there's a lot of confusion with water-based.
Yeah.
Okay. When people hear water-based, the first thing they think about is discharge water-based. Okay. Everywhere I go, they say we're using water-based, and I walk in, I say, what type of water-based?
Yeah.
And they're like, they look at me and like, well, discharge. And I'm like, no, it's because there's different type of water-based systems out there.
Yeah.
So it's very important that we continue to educate and let screen printers know about their different options out there, because yes, you do have water-based discharge, but you also have acrylics and high solid acrylics. And now they call them low solid acrylics, high solid acrylics, and there's now a medium solid acrylic out there.
Okay, well, let's dive into that. Let's just go ahead and dive right in, baby. So I guess for me, I'm sure that you could just go off on a tangent, but I got to put my words in here too to make sure I'm involved in this.
Absolutely.
But like in terms of high solids, what would be the application for an HSA acrylic ink?
Okay, so I kind of want to start from the beginning.
Let's do that.
I think it's important. We start with discharge, which is what everybody's familiar with.
Well, I showed you my things here, right? And I wanted to, I guess I kind of did say, like, let's start with discharge so we can differentiate the two. And then we can go into the specifics of acrylics for dark and light garments, maybe. Does that sound good? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Discharge.
So discharge, there's different types of discharge products out there, and everybody likes discharge because of the soft hand. Okay. More so than being PVC free, people are looking for the softer hand. Okay. Yeah. Discharge is going to do that for you, but it's also going to jeopardize the quality of your prints, because it might give you more of a vintage look, and also it's probably not going to wash as well as something that has more resin or more solids in it.
Right. And just as a side note, which is the reason I've really been pushing away from it, is because of the formaldehydes used to actually do the discharge.
Absolutely.
I mean, these are carcinogens. They're carcinogens.
Correct.
And
and if you don't have a shop that's, well ventilated, it's not a place you want to be working, or environment you want to be working in.
Right.
So that's where a lot of the concerns and issues have, really pushed people away from discharge and back to plastisol. But an area where discharge is widely used and continues to grow is using discharge as an underbase for plastisol printers. Okay, it's a good entry product for getting into water base, and it's a good money-saving product because the plastisol white inks, one, they don't have the soft hand feel. Two, they're pretty expensive compared to discharge. So if you can discharge the dye out of the fabric, and then put your plastisol colors over that, and have a nice soft hand feel, and still maintain the vibrancy of the colors, that's what's appealing to a lot of screen printers right now.
Okay, awesome. Is there any other, before we go into are there any other benefits to discharge that you're aware of?
Benefits, again, it's cost, and being able to print wet on wet.
Right.
Being able to offer a product that is soft hand. I want to say there's more limitations with discharge than there is advantages. Okay. Because limitations are also, you can only print on 100% cotton shirts, or some blends that have, some polyester that's more of a light color polyester or white, like your Heathers.
Yeah.
You can still discharge those 60-40 fabrics. But again, you got the formaldehyde in there.
Right.
You have some t-shirts that won't discharge at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
And, to keep consistency with colors is tough with discharge.
Yeah, especially like I remember with blues and certain reds, like
Correct.
they're just a nightmare to discharge, even if they're
Blue,
100%
red,
cotton.
Violet, green,
right.
Pretty common colors.
It's rough. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it, right? Like discharge is just, it's beautiful because you are giving a nice soft feel, but at the end of the day, it's really not an ideal situation. It maybe, like you said, it's a good entryway if you just want to try your hand at maybe getting a little bit of a softer print. Maybe discharge your base and kind of start there, work your way into it.
Yeah. Well, and one other thing, Cameron, I want to add to that is that nowadays a lot of the shirts have silicone on them. There's a lot of silicone on there, and the discharge seems to react to that. So you might have some inconsistent or unstable results
And that
with shirts.
that silicone comes from the different washes that you're getting, like the butter washes and things like that, right?
Correct, just to
Yeah.
soften up the fabric.
Right. And
Yes,
so the silicone coatings cause big issues for discharging.
absolutely.
Interesting. I
Yep.
wonder if that's the issue with some of them teals and shit. Teal's always been the worst one for. I wonder
Not
if
sure
that's
about the
it.
teals, but definitely seeing it more so now than before,
Uh-huh.
because everybody's going after that soft texture on the shirts.
Gotcha.
So yeah, if you put a little bit of water, like a drop of water on the shirt, and if it beads, there's a lot of silicone on there.
Nice. Very nice tip. Okay, good to know. Well, just real quick, does silicone coating have any effect that you've seen on plastisols or on HSA acrylic water-based inks? Is there any adhesion issues or?
There could be, just depends on how much silicone is on there.
Okay.
But that's why, really cooking it and curing with plastisols is very important, making sure you get the right temperatures and curing times.
Okay.
With water-based, it creates a kind of like a water resistant coating on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you definitely have to use the fixers. Very important to use your fixers and your crosslinkers,
And
so they make sure that they bite into the fabric.
okay, and so, dude, this is I was gonna warn everybody before we start this, because this can really quickly go into a very technical conversation, and the thing is I want to cover all of these technical aspects. Should we talk about additives and fixers when we get to like when we talk about, like, let's say printing white ink, white acrylic inks? We could talk about it then, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
We'll
I
dive
got
into that.
I like to talk about a few tips I have out there before we get into additives that can help.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I'd like to go over again the different type of water-based systems. I think that's where there's a lot of confusion,
Okay.
and where we need to get more information out there. And this is a good opportunity to do it. And there's another product that is coming in strong that I didn't mention earlier, which is a polyurethane as well. Water-based polyurethane.
Yeah, I keep hearing about it.
So we got to take that into consideration as well now too. But the next and one thing, Cam, like we all know, plastisol sits on top of the fabric.
Right.
Okay. Discharge goes into the fabric, and then as we go up in the systems, we're going to end up right back on top of the fabric. Okay. So discharge, softest hand feel, low solid acrylics. Okay, or low solid acrylics.
Okay.
They're gonna bite into the fabric. They're still gonna be soft hand, but you're gonna feel it a little tiny bit on top of the fabric.
Right.
Then your mediums are gonna be a little bit more. Then your high solid acrylics are gonna sit more on top. Okay.
Is your 301 considered a low solid LS, like the 301 base that you mix with your pigments and all that? We've been using that forever, dude.
So all of our eco-friendly products are called 301.
Right. Okay.
So there's a lot of confusion out there. We're very good at confusing.
You guys got a dude. I'm gonna slant. You got too many goddamn SKUs, dude. Let's get the SKUs together. God damn it.
We're working on it. But I just wanted to clarify. 301 is mainly just means eco-friendly product.
Gotcha. Okay. Good to know.
PVC-free, eco-friendly.
Right.
Our very basic entry-level low solid acrylic is just a clear 301, matte 301, white 301.
Right.
Okay? That is also our high mesh printing water base. It is the water-based acrylic that has the best open time in the screen. Great for printing directly onto fabric. Awesome for printing wet on wet. And just easy to work with, overall.
But you wouldn't probably use any of the low solid. Oh, dude, we're gonna get so far off into you wouldn't use a low solid like the 301, whatever in the spectrum, to overprint on a white high solid acrylic base, would you?
Absolutely.
You would.
Absolutely.
See, this is where
because everybody's looking for wet on wet printing.
We got to get into this. We got to keep this organized, bro, because it's going to get crazy. So let's do it this way. Let's start with printing white, and then we'll talk about what you can print over white with the acrylics. We've talked everything you need to do about discharge. We got that out of the way. So starting with white ink, white acrylic inks. Let's start there, printing them on a dark shirt. That's where we got to start, baby.
All right.
So
what if I told you there's a better solution than printing white ink?
Oh shit, let's do it, baby.
All right. Water-based is also considered a solvent,
Okay.
which makes it a translucent product, right? Transparent. So whenever you print any type of ink that has some kind of transparency to it, it's going to want to change its colors dependent on the substrate that you're printing on. Okay? So what we found, and very similar to the shirt I'm wearing right now, is when you're printing a gray underbase, okay, like a barrier base, okay, that neutralizes the background with water base. Okay? This is a really interesting fact and tip that everyone can use. We like the gray underbases because they're the closest to white and they can be used like a primer, just like you do when you're painting your walls at home.
Right.
Okay. So now you have the flexibility of printing on different styles of shirts, different color shirts, because your background stays a neutral color.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you come back with the white underbase. Okay.
Okay.
Both products, if you're using the correct two products, should have enough elasticity in them so that when you print your bases and colors on top, okay, you don't have to worry about which base you're really using other than the opacity of the base, if that makes sense.
Right. So I have to clarify here. So if you start, so you have your first screen, which is your gray blocker base. So you lay that bad boy down, you flash it, quick flash,
Yes.
right? Okay. Now, let's just say you have a yellow, red, blue print on top of that. Do you still need to print a white cover over that?
Yes.
So you need to have a second screen that is kind of like a white base after the blocker base.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, okay. Good to know.
Yeah, because most formulas are designed, most colors are that are formulated to print over a white underbase need that white reflection,
right,
you know, to be able to be consistent with the formula.
But now what if you're a shop that, let's say you have an automatic and you only, and like you're just entering into it, but you only have an auto that has an available 5 stations and it's a 5-color job. So can you forego the blocker, the gray blocker, if it's on 100% cotton?
Well, again, because water base is a solvent, no matter what your first screen is, gray or white, it's really there as a primer.
Okay.
It's not a good sealer, you know, because it's going to absorb into the fabric a little bit.
Right.
So no matter, you know, how many bases you use, normally you want to use 2 bases minimum, rule of thumb.
Okay.
You know, so it could be a gray and a white or a white and a white.
But so you can flash print white and get ultimately the same effect.
Yes.
Right. But
Absolutely.
But in your experience, if you're going for premium perfect, especially like on, does the gray blocker help with like tri-blends and to prevent bleeding and that sort of thing?
Yeah, all of the above, because the gray blocker is a higher viscosity product.
Okay.
And the key with water-based printing is to try to get above the fibers, above the fabric as soon as possible.
Okay.
So the blocker helps achieve that as well.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So just to try to rehash it, man, if you have the color availability, it sounds to me like too, like the gray blocker, because it's a little bit higher solid, it just creates a better platform to then print these other water-based acrylics on top of.
Correct. Yes.
So if you have the available, you know, screens and all this and that, you really should be whatever brand you're going with, even if you're not doing Matsui, you know, even if you're doing Green Galaxy or this and that, the bases are kind of, it sounds like, sort of the trick, right? That's really the secret.
It's the backbone.
That's the backbone. Okay.
It's the backbone of printing, you know, successful water base.
That's beautiful
and
to
keeping
know.
True colors.
Dude, it's funny. You've told me this before, but you just don't hear that kind of information being sprinkled around in the screen print world very often. So let's keep that in mind, guys. Now, you're gonna do a gray base. You've decided you're gonna do gray base. You're gonna do the whites and then all of your colors and all this kind of stuff. But with your gray and your white base, let's say you're going to do 2, what is your mesh selection? What do you need to be doing here? And also, if you can talk, I mean, if you want to go into that much detail with Newtons and all this kind of shit, you can. You can keep it as general as you want.
Okay. Well, I think everybody understands that high tension is very important. You know, it depends on what type of thread you're using out there. You know, I can get pretty technical on the mesh side. You know, I come from that background as well.
Yeah.
But with water-based, we are finding, and even with plastisol, but more so with water-based, the thin thread technology out there, the S threads, and I believe they're called the Hydra
I don't know that
uh,
one.
from Saudi, and I'm sure the other manufacturers have a thinner thread.
Yeah.
Um, those meshes help a lot, and it's really because of the coverage. We need good coverage when you're printing water-based.
Yeah, and it does
Um,
seem, with my experience, just with what we've been doing, even because we obviously are only manual printers, the finer threads just they give less for the water-based inks to adhere to when you're in print, when you're in the
Correct. It
print
releases it
process.
better.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it releases it better. So I do
releases it
agree.
better. We need good release. As far as mesh counts, base plates, we're anywhere between 110 to 180, 230 in some cases.
And
It
and
just depends on what you're laying down first.
I would like, I know that this is tough and it's getting technical, but can we talk about maybe, because there are, man, especially on this channel, a lot of people are manual printers. So it's a different monster than automatics where they have 12 colors and they can But can we talk about mesh selection based on if you're going to be doing it on a manual press as opposed to an automatic press?
Absolutely, especially on a manual, you definitely want to use a thin thread. Um, you want to have a good open meshes. So 110s, 160s are pretty standard for the bases. Again, depending on what you're comfortable with, manuals you could get away with, more print flash printing.
Mm.
But for the gray blocker, for example, I would start off with the 110 and then follow it up with the 160 on the white.
Gotcha.
Uh,
Beautiful. Now, what if you are doing this on an automatic? Obviously you can up your mesh counts and these kind of
Absolutely.
things.
You can
Yeah.
start off with the 160 and up it to 180, 200, or 230 on the white.
Okay.
And
Is there a mentality change when it comes to a lot of, I'm trying to keep my thoughts clear. There's so much information. A lot of automated printers that are traditionally utilizing plastisol, trying to, in an attempt to keep the hand down, they tend to print even whites through much higher mesh counts, right?
mhm,
It's very common. You don't have to approach it with the same mentality when it comes to these acrylic water bases, right? Because even when you get a lot of coverage, the hand is just nowhere near as thick,
correct.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going to be personal preference and what, how good of a printer you are and what you can accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but one thing I use as an example is, what happens when you rub a balloon on your hair and you pull it away, you know? Uh,
With my
you get
hair,
static,
bro,
right?
it's a damn mess. Yeah.
You get some static. So, we see that happening in screen printing, between the squeegees, the emulsions that have, some uh, uh, tendency of creating static as well.
Yeah.
And then the ink itself has PVC. Okay.
Okay.
So all that movement, okay, and depending on the environment, if it's dry or humid, can create the fibers of the shirt to stand up.
Whoa, oh, wait. This is okay, dude. The conversation of fiber stand up and that's the suede feel and fibrillation. Are we talking about plastisol right now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so
But
are you saying a big culprit of that is just like the static charge and the things that happen when it pulls the fibers as you're lifting the screen off of the fabric?
correct. Combination of that and the tackiness of the ink as well.
Oh my lord,
So you
man.
got all these things working against you, and with water base, and the acrylics, because of the moisture in there, it helps mat down the fibers a lot better. That's why we're having better success with these really tough fabrics to print on, like tri-blends.
Yeah, I mean we do even and even the fill. Like I've noticed, you get the same coverage with plastisol with like a white water based whatever brand you go with. But the coverage is so smooth and there's so little lift up and fibrillation that you can see like the texture of the t-shirt weave through it,
Correct.
even though it's highly opaque. The premium quality of it is second to none. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, that's a
So
great tip though. I didn't even know that. I never heard that before about the static thing.
yeah, and it just right now, a lot of garments have a lot of fibers in them, and some of those fibers you can't even see it until you print it.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Especially like the
um,
ring spun, the combed ring spun stuff. They actually have more fibrous. They have more of a tendency to give what I call the suede feel.
correct. A lot of recycled polyester also.
You see that a lot.
Like
Dude, that's
the
beautiful.
wicking materials or the like the dry fit type shirts, stuff like that.
Yeah, man. God damn. Well, that was a great tip right there. Just understanding that the static and all of those things can create fibrillation with plastisol inks. But making the switch to water-based will help you battle a lot of those issues.
Correct.
Okay. Now,
And it's going to help with your hand feel on the prints as well.
for sure. Oh man, it's a night and day difference. If you even just do a print flash print with a white, like a white graphic, you do a print flash print with HSA water based, high solid acrylic water based, and your traditional plastisol. The feel it's a night and day difference. It really doesn't even compare. It's so much better. Mesh selection, we covered that. So the next issue, this is what really does prevent most people from just making the transition at all in any way, shape, or form, which is the drying in the screen. Particularly in Arizona, we have low humidity. We have oven level temperatures here. What can we do? Give us all the tips and tricks to prevent drying, unless we missed something in the first part.
Well, I think the first thing we got to do is remind ourselves that we're not printing with plastisol.
Okay.
I think everybody gets so accustomed and comfortable printing plastisol that they start treating water-based like plastisol.
Okay.
You definitely have to be more attentive to your screens and the ink in the screens. You have to be more generous with the ink in the screens. I always use the example of 2 puddles of water, a small one and a big one. Which one's going to dry quicker? It's always a smaller puddle that's going to evaporate quicker than the bigger puddle. So the more water-based ink you have in the screen, okay, to a certain point, okay, because if you have too much, that can also work against you. That moisture around the image area is very important. So having those butterfly flood bars, or if you're printing on a manual, filling the image area in with ink and then covering it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of us just flood, but they never fill the image area in.
Yeah, you are the one.
Air.
You're the one that told me that. So you're doing a double flood stroke. You're pushing the ink into the openings and then you're doing the cover.
Correct.
Yeah, you're the one that told me that. And it is complex because if you overfill the areas, then you get dot gain that's out of control. So it's it's a trick. Yeah. Right? You have to learn how to do it, but that's a good tip.
But the beauty of water base, unlike plastisol, even if you're printing halftones, you actually get dot loss, not dot gain.
Huh? Okay.
Yes. Water base will give you dot loss, not dot gain.
Because the edges start drying around or near the emulsion.
That and because of the viscosity of the ink, you don't have to put down that much pressure. So the printing of the dots are actually more consistent.
Interesting.
And they're more true. Okay?
Okay.
But, because we're not used to it, and in plastisol we make adjustments for that dot gain, we end up with dot loss. So when you're printing water-based, you got to make that adjustment for that dot loss so that you can be where you need to be, if that makes sense.
It does. But does that come down in the screen room? Does a lot of the time that happen in the art seps?
Yes.
So high level water-based printers are actually making adjustments to their art to account for that?
Correct.
Wow, interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Can we go? Is that too much to go into right now?
Well, I mean, the important thing to know is just realize about what's the percentage of that dot that you're losing, and then increase it in the art. You know, and we found that it's going to be anywhere between 10 to 20%.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah. So just understanding that, that's a good starting point for most.
I think we may need to cover that in some other kind of video to talk about how to adjust for that and whether you separate in Photoshop or Illustrator. I think that may be something that we need to dive into for a future video.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. But it's something just to throw out there for people to consider.
Yeah, beautiful. But again, man, it's not to scare you all off. You can still do shit the way you've been doing to get started, right? Yeah. That's for when you're really getting technical. Mesh selection, drying, and screen. So more drying and screen tips, man, because you fed me a shitload of them that I never even thought of. So let's talk about some more of them.
So, the most important one is using the correct emulsion.
Right.
That's something that we always forget to talk about. And a lot of people don't realize that using the wrong emulsion can also create the problem of ink drying in the screen. And the reason for that is because some of these acrylics, or most of these acrylics, have a little bit of solvent in them. And if the emulsion is not solvent resistant, it's going to dehydrate the ink in the screen.
And just to reiterate what that means, the emulsion literally sucks the moisture out of the ink into itself.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, using the correct emulsions, which all the emulsion manufacturers have done an excellent job in introducing emulsions that are multi-use, that were compatible with both plastisol and water-based and discharge now. So it's really finding those new products and bringing them into your shop. I prefer the photopolymers.
Yeah, let's definitely. I feel like this is an important thing. I wish I could do like a little note here so that people know to come to this. So we got to talk about emulsion selection, and I always hesitate being brand specific, but I do know that you are also just familiar with certain brands, right? So let's talk about emulsions. If you can give multiple brands, that would be awesome. But if you're only familiar with one manufacturer, it's okay.
Well, Kevin, all the emulsion manufacturers, the true emulsion manufacturers, let's make that clear.
Okay.
Because there is a lot of companies out there that are manufacturing their emulsions, but that's not their strength. They just added it onto their line. The true emulsion manufacturers like Ilano, Sadi, Murakami, Kiwo, the top brands out there have very, very good solutions for what is out there now, or for the type of ink systems that are available that are multi-use.
Who are the ones that are manufacturing their own emulsions? Again, Ulano, Sadi, Murakami.
Well, those are the real manufacturers.
They
the guys
manufacture.
that focus only on emulsion.
Okay, good to know.
That's their primary product that they focus on.
Good to
know. And that the guys that are really good at it.
Okay, let's start with them. Let's just give some of the models that are solvent resistant or solvent proof, right?
Have some solvent resistance.
Okay, so solvent resistance. If you're going with whoever, though, the real question to ask whatever brand you're going with is, does it have solvent resistance? Yeah. Is that more important, or is that the same thing as water resistant? Is it the same concept?
No, even though water is considered a solvent, you want water resistancy and solvent resistance.
Okay, good to know.
Okay.
All right. So let's get some. If you have them, dude, let's get some model numbers or some SKUs out there.
Well, right off the top of my head, Murakami, they have the T9 out there. Chromoline has the WR. Sadi has the PHU. Kiwo has I think it's called Multi-Tech or something like that, maybe.
Okay. At the end of this, we'll maybe we can get a list from you. We'll put it in the description for everybody.
Okay.
Cool.
Perfect.
Sweet. Any more you can think of off the top of your head?
Yolano, I'm still working with them right now.
Okay.
I know they have a product, and we're working with them right now. They're doing some testing with some of our inks as well.
All right.
And I'll have a clearer answer on which product will be good for that as well. But we're friendly with all the manufacturers, and we're trying to work together, because I think in this industry it's important that everybody works together to make sure we give solutions as a complete package.
I agree completely. Yeah. That's a very good point. And when you say things like that, you're talking about like finding emulsion manufacturers that are creating things that work specifically for your kind of thing, right?
Everything across the board, from exposure units, to mesh, to emulsions, to chemicals. We got to make it easy for the screen printers.
Yeah. And
if we don't communicate with each other, and products are just not going to be compatible with each other, not understanding what each other's doing.
Yeah, and there is and even, dude, like, I'm even going to admit I'm part of the problem, but I'm also hopefully part of the solution. But there's just a river of fucking information, but also a river of misinformation. So it really is up to the community as a whole to try to push out the river of horse shit and bring in the proper stuff, right?
Exactly.
So hopefully we can do that, man. And hopefully this is going to be the avenue for all of us to do it. I hope. Flash times, cure times in regards to white prints on cotton. And I just want to reiterate, we discussed already that you got a gray block, you're going to do white. So let's talk about flash times, cure times. This is somewhere that when you told me some of this stuff, I was like, what? what? So.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of things that we don't consider is treating fabrics differently. When you're printing on 100% cotton, that's an absorbent fabric. So it's going to absorb more moisture, and it's going to take longer to evaporate that moisture. Versus a polyester, that's a synthetic fabric that when you apply heat to it, it's going to heat up quicker, so it'll evaporate the moisture quicker. So, a lot of these things, come down the road of just common sense,
Sure.
The more moisture you put to something that's absorbent, the longer it's going to take to dry. Okay? That's where, again, mesh counts may come into play. If you use a too open of a mesh, it's going to take longer to dry it.
Just simply, you're just laying more ink down that has more water to
Correct.
evaporate and solvent to evaporate.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why when you're using discharge as an underbase, it's important to use high mesh counts because you need to flash it thoroughly before you put the plastisol inks on top.
Okay, interesting. Okay. Now, so you're going to treat a discharge underbase very differently because you want it high mesh so that you're not penetrating so deeply that it takes 2 hours to cure and evaporate and flash it. Right. Okay.
Correct.
Understood. Yeah. Okay. I think I got that. Hey, brother, at the end of this, man, maybe we need to do a quick tips kind of thing that we can also put in the description.
Absolutely.
For discharge for water base. Okay. So with discharge, high mesh, and it'll allow you higher flash time or better flash time. So let's talk about discharge first with higher mesh counts so that we can get flash times. What do you think with cotton? Like, what have you found? What's the procedure to make sure that you're flashing it correctly, not over flashing it, but not under flashing it?
So when you're using discharge as an underbase on cotton shirts, I tend to recommend 200 to 230 mesh.
Okay.
Because you're going to lay down just enough to remove the dye from the fabric, and because there's such a minimal amount of moisture that you'll be able to flash it a lot quicker.
Okay.
Okay. And the reason why flashing discharge is important is because it's a chemical reaction that's happening that needs a gas out. Okay. When you put plastisol on top of discharge, you're basically encapsulating those gases.
Gotcha.
So if you don't evaporate or get that chemical reaction to happen before you encapsulate it, it's going to want to break through that plastisol, giving you a couple of problems like shifting of colors and also weakening the adhesion or the stretch on the plastisol.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So you don't want that reaction to happen and bringing down the quality of your print.
So now on your flash with the discharge base, high mesh count, you're getting your temperatures. You're obviously pre-flashing your palettes to get them up to temp, right?
Correct.
Which is about 2, or was it like 190s or 1?
No, remember. It's going to be between 120 to 160.
And that's your palette temps, which you can be testing to make sure that they're at that temperature.
Yes.
Okay, so you're getting it to 120 to 190 your palette temps. You're running it under. When you're flashing the discharge base, are you wanting to physically see it discharge, or do you just need to hit it long enough that it's giving it a chance to start the evaporation process?
You do want to see the effect.
Okay.
Probably getting it to about 80 to 85% is good enough.
Okay, but
it doesn't have to be 100%.
But you do want to see the activation happening.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You want to see it there.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a great tip. I feel like a lot of these little things are just questions that have been floating around in the ether. No one knows for sure. So thank you.
Well, I see a lot of guys using 110 mesh as an underbase with discharge, and then wondering why they're having all these problems.
We were doing that.
Yeah, it's not necessary.
Yeah. Very good, man. Beautiful. Now, moving on from discharge. High solid acrylics with the bases. Let's talk about flashing that stuff.
Okay. So again, preheating of palettes is very important. Most of the time you'll be printing on synthetic fabrics or blends. So those have a tendency of evaporating the moisture a lot quicker as well.
Okay.
So, flashing can be anywhere between 250 to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. And depending on how hot the palettes get, you can start lowering the amount of time. You might start off at about 6 seconds, and then little by little you might end up, with about 3 or 2 seconds, just depending on how hot depending on which palettes you have, which machine you're using. That's going to dictate the amount of time and temperature that you use on your flashes. Okay. So it's going to be something that you got to find that sweet spot. Do
you find that with these acrylic water based underbase or just bases in general that you can leave some tackiness, or are you trying to get pretty close to a full cure with these things?
Well,
As opposed, because with plastisol, you can let it ride. You don't have to get a full cure a lot of
yeah,
the times. You know what
no.
I mean?
So I'm glad you said a cure. With
Yeah.
water-based, we don't cure, we dry.
We dry. Thank you. Okay, let's get it. Let's get it clear. God damn it.
But no, we just wanted to be touch dry,
Okay.
and obviously, whether it's plastisol or water-based, if there's a little bit of tackiness in the ink, that will cause problems.
Yeah.
It can lift the shirt up, or if you're printing wet on wet, it's going to cause buildup on your screens.
Okay. All right. So, you're just drying it till it doesn't have the tackiness to the touch.
Yep.
Like with everything
and
else. Okay.
different water-based options will have different flashing.
Okay.
Okay. Sweet spots, because a low solid acrylic versus a high solid acrylic, it's going to take longer to flash the low solid because it's designed to stay longer, open longer in the screen, and also for wet on wet printing. Where a high solid acrylic has high solids, which are going to evaporate the moisture a lot quicker, so they might flash a little bit quicker.
Okay, so dude, I'm turning my phone off and it is literally turning back on. With high solids, there we go. Okay, so with high solids, oh fuck, I got completely distracted there. Yeah, let's because I do feel like we need to talk about that, because we need to talk about the base differences, and we need to talk about when you're going to use high solid versus low solids and that kind of stuff, right? And that's really where we come into play with color inks and the overprints and shit like that. Yeah. Do you think we're ready to move on to that, or?
Well, I guess the most important thing, yes, absolutely, because I think that's where a lot of people are still confused. Why the different systems? I've heard comments where you have to be a chemist to use water-based. It's just there's a lot of variables out there in fabrics nowadays that having these variables actually work in your favor. So you can print on different type of substrates.
Right.
The acrylics is just pretty much a technology that came in to replace the traditional water-based, and just make it easier to work with and easier to print with. It was going to help improve the performance of water-based inks. High solids came in when we were trying to print on fabrics other than 100% cotton, the 50/50s, the tri-blends, and now polyesters. So high solids have become very important for printing on synthetic fabrics.
Okay.
Because of the coverage, them sitting on top, stretchability, elasticity, wash fastness. So it's because of the amount of resin in the ink that helps us with all those areas.
Okay. But the problem with the higher solids is the damn dry time.
They could dry faster, yes. Yeah, absolutely. So more solids, quicker dry time.
And I'm just going to kind of go back into that because I brought it up. What are some things that a printer can do to prevent ink drying beyond yeah, let's talk about that. Did we cover that? Not really.
Well, we did a little bit, Cameron, but we didn't kind of finish it all the way through.
Yeah.
And it kind of falls into, the additives now as well.
Okay.
So, I have been working with additives since I've been with Matsui, and I've always known about additives. But a lot of printers want easy, especially here in the U.S.
Yeah, yeah.
They want one product that works for everything. It's not going to happen. Okay? I'm sorry, but it's not going to happen. But I also hear, a lot of people talking about, hey, this water-based system is ready for use. You don't have to add any additives. I don't buy it. Different environments are going to require different adjustments. Okay. And they're finding that out. A lot of customers buy into it, they try it, and they find out it doesn't work the way they presented it. So regardless of which brand or manufacturer you go with, always ask which additives are available for these products. Okay. Especially the ones that are going to give you longer open time in the screen and crosslinkers. Those are your two primary additives you want out there.
Crosslinkers? What is that?
Crosslinkers, like your fixer.
Okay, the fixers. Okay. We have to talk about all that.
Yeah.
So I just want to I want to reiterate. So we've talked about the bases. We've talked about the whites. We know what meshes we need. We know. I guess I want to throw this out there. You've told me this before, and then we're going to move on to additives. So with to prevent drying, other than additives and stuff like that, like I remember even you telling me pre-wetting the mesh, right? Mm-hmm. Either with a what you called it, a wetting agent.
Penetrant, or we use a softener.
A softener,
Okay.
but you can even use water, right? Just some way to kind of get that mesh pre-primed.
Keep some moisture.
Right.
You know.
So that's before you ink up. You throw
Mm-hmm.
that stuff in there.
Yeah.
And then another one that you told me, because like we showed you how much ink we were using, and you were like, you're not using enough ink, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to change your way of thinking when it comes to loading the screen with ink. You
Correct.
load it up, right?
Correct.
Okay, so
Yes.
we got that out of the way. We know you got to load up, pre-wet the thing. Any other things before we talk about additives with drying?
Keeping a misting bottle handy.
Yeah.
With a little bit of water, and it can have a little bit of retarder or softener in it.
Okay.
You know, just to extend the evaporation process of water.
We've had a lot of bad luck with that process. We get the, and we're probably doing something wrong.
Well, you know what I found, and I went to one shop, and what they did is they went to a business, or I want to say a supplier of hair salon products, and they found these misting bottles that they use in the hair salons.
Yeah.
That give you this beautiful mist.
So it's fine mist is the thing.
Fine mist. Yeah.
So a spray bottle that has like heavy droplets is not the same thing as a good mister.
Yeah, and I think you and I both know that if we go and buy that cheap bottle at Walmart or even Home Depot, that they use for other applications, they're going to break down and leave big drops of water.
They do.
That can cause problems.
Yeah.
So you want a fine mist. You definitely said it. Fine mist is very, very important.
Yeah, and they have like reptile foggers and shit too, if you can figure out a way to implement that in some kind
That's the new thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you can make it work. It's interesting to see if you can make it work.
So I went to a shop here in Arizona, okay, and they have a Workhorse automatic, which, I feel that Workhorse is a great product for plastisol, but for water-based, it's a little bit more challenging. We have to do more things to make water-based work on it, but they were committed to using water-based. So they went out and did the research. They found a website called thehouseofhydro.com. Okay. And they bought all the components to build their own fogger. And they built their own fogger with PVC tubing. And really quickly, like all of us have found, condensation becomes a problem.
Sure.
And then you get some drops on there as well.
Yep,
right?
Same thing. Bloop.
Yep. So what they did is they got some sponges and cut them to half the size of the opening of the PVC pipe.
Yeah. And
they put them on the bottom part. So any condensation is going to go into the sponge and absorb up in the sponge.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful.
So just screen printers. That's what I love about the industry is we do a lot with very little. You know?
You're right.
So
that's
good
true.
inventors.
They're good. It's an inventive industry for sure.
Absolutely.
Are there presses that you feel are just better suited to water-based printing? Is it just because they do certain things differently? I don't know. Again, I don't like the idea of plugging stuff, especially if you don't have to.
But, well, I think you can make all the presses work. Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just understanding the application and the technical way of making them work, because you understand how the ink works. Okay. Some people say aluminum palettes are better. Some people say honeycomb palettes are better. Honestly, it's all about maintaining that temperature. If you can maintain the temperature on that palette, you can make it work. And
maintaining those temps is what helps you increase your flash times, right? Or shorten your flash times by having the proper.
Lower them and shorten them.
Okay, correct. Understood.
Another thing that I keep throwing out there to the manufacturers, and I mention it to all of them. Water-based needs hot air, not high temperature.
Right.
So even implementing some kind of a hot airflow in the flashes is going to help also evaporate that moisture a lot quicker and push it away.
Now, the obvious solution to me for somebody that doesn't have a forced air flash system but it comes with inherent problems, is just putting a fan next to it to create air movement alongside of that heat. But obviously it's going to push that heat away. But does that work? Have you found that is a comparable solution?
Yes, I've been to shops that they have actual direct air hoses on their cooling station.
Okay.
Yeah. And the reason for this, Cameron, is because what a lot of us don't realize is when you're printing water-based and you're evaporating that water, you're introducing moisture to your palette.
Right.
Okay.
Even the
So
palette tape starts sucking up
you
moisture. Yeah.
create steam,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Yeah.
and that steam deactivates your glue on the adhesive. So that's where you run into registration problems because your t-shirts are picking up,
Yeah.
you know, whatever you're printing on wants to pick up because there's no adhesion there.
Dude, yeah.
So that's why it's important to cool it back down so that the adhesion comes back to hold the garment down.
Okay. All right. So flash times we've talked about. Now we haven't got into the additives, but I know that they are an important part of it. But should we talk about additives before talking about the dryer, or does it all go together? Additives and
Well,
drying and curing.
yeah, we'll talk about the additives before.
Okay.
But even before we get to additives, Cameron, also I want to give everybody the confidence to consider using, you know, maybe a high mesh acrylic base, like a clear or a matte,
Okay.
to improve your high solid acrylic printability and open time in the screen. Okay. So when you're using a high solid acrylic base, implementing a regular acrylic, you know, anywhere between 5 to 20%, up to 50%, will improve the user friendliness of that high solid acrylic.
And by saying that, you mean when you have your high solid ink, we're just going to call it a high opacity white, just because we're going to kind of try to use plastisol terms as well. A high opacity white, HSA, high solid acrylic.
Correct. Yes.
You're talking about what we would call basing it down.
Or extending it.
Or extending it with a light solid acrylic base.
A low solid. Yeah, low solid
I'm sorry,
acrylic.
low solid acrylic.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
Or,
okay.
or even just a clear, you know.
Okay.
Just a clear that has no pigment in it.
Yeah. And you're just doing that just to basically extend drying time within the screen.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because whites, especially with whites, they come pretty high viscosity. So, and when you start printing, it's going to go up in viscosity even more. So you're anticipating what's going to happen in the screen.
It's true. Yeah, you even get better coverage once production. Like when you first start production, the coverage may not be where you need it to be, but you know once the ink dries to that certain point, that's when your coverage really starts increasing as well. So smart.
Oh, and the reason a lot of people are losing opacity on the whites is because they're adding additives before they even start using it, you know. So the additives can reduce that viscosity enough to affect the opacity of the ink.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So it's just, again, you know, understanding that, a lot of trial and error. You know, guys like us, we don't come out here and say we're the experts. You know, we come out here and offer theories to help the experts who are the printers that do it day in, day out.
Gotcha.
So,
beautiful.
you know, we're here to help them out.
Okay. Yeah, sweet, dude. So I feel like we understand that, but we got to talk about all of this additive stuff, because I think at the end of the day, especially with Matsui, but it does help with delaying dry times and then also extending cure times, fixing it to the fabric better, all these kind of things. We got to do it.
Okay.
It's a logical next step.
So the additives, well, with Matsui, I could probably speak better for Matsui, but all the water-based companies do have these additives available.
Okay.
The most important one for us, and the one we recommend, is the Crosslinker, the fixer. Okay. That is important because there's a lot of different type of drying units out there, different types of dryers, anything from electric dryers with no forced air, electric dryers with forced air, to gas dryers, and then there's also different size dryers out there as well.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So the Crosslinker, or the fixer, which we call we call it a fixer, that helps, you know, ensure the printer that they're going to get the best curing or drying possibility, so that their prints can withstand the wash tests.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Have you found that it's almost a necessity or a requirement?
Absolutely. It's an insurance policy. I call it an insurance policy.
Okay. Okay. So you might get away without using it, but do you want to risk it?
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good to know. So the fixer is going to help it here. Does it allow you to shorten dry times, or does it allow you to shorten flash times, tunnel times, anything like that?
Yes, it will help in those areas.
Okay.
More so in the dryer itself, because most water-based companies will recommend 320 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 minutes. You know, you tell a screen printer that, and it's like you're telling him to shut his doors and go out of business.
Right.
You know,
It's tough.
you know, it's hard to ask a screen printer who's used to 45 seconds to a minute, you know, to go all the way up to 3 minutes. You know, they're like, no way. But a crosslinker or a fixer will help cut that time in half.
Okay, very good to know. Now, with or without the additive, I've heard some input, and I think it depends maybe on the manufacturer, but is there a after cure fixing time or a time that garments need to dry to be fully cured and ready for the wash test?
Absolutely. You know, what we're doing is we're starting an evaporation process. So you have to allow water-based ink minimum 12 to 24 hours with the crosslinker, okay, with the fixer, to finish its, you know, binding or fixing to the shirt. Okay. Chemical reaction to fix to the shirt, okay? Okay. There is additives out there that are low cure additives or air dry additives. Again, you know, these are crosslinkers that allow you to not have to use a dryer and just let it air dry.
Gotcha.
Okay. That will also help you lower the temperature of your dryer as well.
Is the fixer from Matsui the same thing as a low cure, or is it not the same thing?
No, it will allow you to lower the curing temperature or the drying temperature, okay, and the speed, the time in the dryer. Okay. But it'll probably get you down to about a 200 and let's call it 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which is still pretty good.
That's really good. Yeah.
For polyester printing especially.
Yeah.
But you know, there's a lot of fabrics now that are starting to change, and with temperature. You know, it's like you get them up to even 270, 280, and they start deforming.
Yeah,
you know,
they do.
So, you know, you have to get down to that 250, 230 range. That's where this, we call it more of a catalyst, comes into play.
Okay? So a catalyst is for very sensitive fabrics.
Yes.
That require extremely low temps, extremely low cure temps.
Or really small curing units or drying units.
Okay, so we have the fixer first off. Now we're talking about what you guys call the catalyst. Now, do other manufacturers outside of Matsui have something similar to this? Would it be called a catalyst as well?
Well, it's known as a catalyst, yeah.
Okay.
And the reason it's important that we recognize as a catalyst because it will add a pot life to your ink.
Okay, understood. Okay, so a catalyst adds a pot life, whereas your fixer, can you pre-mix your gallons with fixer and it's not it won't kill it?
Yes, you could. Okay.
Not advisable.
But again, it's a liquid and it will evaporate with time. Okay. So the fixer is the only thing we don't recommend pre-mixing into the inks. The retarder, the softener, you can pre-mix that, no problem. We like to add the fixer when we're ready to use it. But it's not going to add a shelf life or pot life to your ink.
Okay, but catalyst, you also don't add it till you use it, but it will absolutely add like how many hours? 12 to 24 hours, depending on how you store it. Okay, and again, all manufacturers offer some form of catalyst. It has a shelf life, and what does catalyst do exactly?
It just helps the ink either air dry or cure at a lower temperature.
Okay. Okay, so it is what you would really consider the low cure additive.
Low cure additive, exactly.
Okay, we're gonna call that catalyst. Now, just for my own knowledge, from Matsui, what is that model number? What is it called from you guys exactly?
Well, we call it a fixer. We still call it a fixer, but it's gonna be fixer L as in low cure.
Fixer L, okay, and then the regular stuff is just fixer.
Fixer N.
Fixer, yeah, you guys, oh my, you guys got to work on all this craziness, man. Fixer L, fixer N, okay. So fixer N is just regular, good old-fashioned adhesion additive. Fixer L is for low cure, for those really sensitive fabrics. Okay.
I tell everybody N for no pot life.
Gotcha. All right, perfect. I feel like we got that, man. Any other additives to talk about in regards to using them for curing and those kind of things?
Yeah, not necessarily for curing. There is a dulling additive now.
Dulling, okay.
And that's like we talked earlier about tackiness or stickiness. It helps reduce that tackiness or stickiness for wet on wet printing. It also will reduce any kind of gloss. So, you know, normally water-based is considered a matte finish where plastisol is considered glossy, but there is high solids out there that do have a little gloss finish to them. So if you want to cut down on that gloss, we do have a dulling additive. Okay. And then next to that would be just, you know, the retarder to give it that open time in the screen.
So if you're having issues with drying, if you're having big, especially like say you're printing in Arizona, low humidity, high heat, the retarder is probably going to be your go-to additive.
Yes. You want to start with a very minimal amount because, again, the evaporation process hasn't started yet with the ink. So you might want to start off with 1 to 2% max. Okay. The retarder is also a very good product to recycle your ink, meaning your production ink that comes off of production, it's going to lose some moisture, right? And if you want to reuse that ink, the retarder is a really good additive to bring it back to its original viscosity or a workable viscosity to be able to use it again.
Okay, and I feel like you mentioned this earlier. Could you get a fine misting spray bottle, put retarder in it, and utilize that as your wetting agent for on production stuff, or is that's sketchy?
Yeah, on production, yes, no problem.
Okay.
This is mainly this recommendation is mainly when you pick up the ink. Okay, it's going to be really high in viscosity, really thick, really hard.
Right.
At least with our inks, they re-wet really nicely, and the retarder will really bring the viscosity back to where it needs to be, so that you can use it, later on in the future again.
Yeah, I mean we're used to I mean I honestly didn't know you could do that. So yeah,
Yep.
we've just been dumping. If it doesn't get used in production, it goes in the garbage. So that is beautiful to know. So that is your re-wetting agent, is what retarder is.
Correct.
Beautiful,
Yes.
man. Okay. And then I felt like you mentioned something else. Well, oh yeah, no, I wanted to ask in regards to the dulling additive. So if you were using an HSA ink that had a tendency to pick up more, can you add the dulling additive if you wanted to get a little bit better wet on wet action?
Absolutely.
If you were in that situation for whatever reason, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And a lot of times it comes hand in hand with the chemistry of the original base that you're using, because some bases have a tendency of being stickier than others.
Okay.
So the smoother or the less tacky the base is, the dulling additive is going to work better with that. Okay.
All right.
And that's why we use the mixture as well of the acrylics with the high solid acrylics to improve that tackiness that a high solid may have, so that we're able to print more colors wet on wet.
Right. Okay.
Okay?
We didn't talk. I know we're gonna get into color, guys. This is gonna go on. We're here to give you the information, but I feel like I almost do want you to plug Matsui products, just so that we have a baseline to start with what products we should be starting with. So the gray, I would like to talk about the gray, and then what you would consider the best white base from Matsui, because I know you can speak to that at length. Can you help
Absolutely.
with that? Okay.
There's a couple of products out there, and for me, the water-based competition that's out there, we all offer very similar products, and I have no problem talking about all of them, because at the end of the day, we're predominantly plastisol printing country. So the more water-based that's out there, the better it is for us as a country, and also for the working environment for the printers. So there's a lot of good things that could come out of it, and also making your shop more sustainable as well, because you're using less chemistry, more natural products in your shop. But getting back to our products, our underbase gray is just real simply called Underbase Blocker 301.
Okay, so we got Underbase Blocker 301. This is your recommendation. You're calling it the primer. This will allow you to maybe you would probably even do this if you had a mixture in the same order of polyester and cotton garments. If somebody you would just start with your underbase gray. That's going to cover all your bases. Do you need to low cure the underbase or any of those? Do you need to fixer any of these things?
I use the additives on everything, because I always want to make sure that our customers give their customers the best quality product.
So we're definitely adding at least a fixer, even if it's the fixer in. We're going to add fixer in to this gray blocker.
Yes.
We may or may not add retarder depending on what kind of drying issues we're having. But we don't need to add the dulling additive, right? Because it is a low viscosity.
Yes.
Okay.
No,
we're getting there.
It's a high viscosity, but you don't need to worry about tackiness with the underbase blockers. They are non-tacky, okay? So they have a really nice, smooth, matte finish to them.
I feel like my slowness is coming out here. Let's define high viscosity, low viscosity. I feel like you did it already, and I already forgot.
Yeah. So you're right. I get confused with that all the time too.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
confusing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the high viscosity is going to be like the thicker products,
Okay.
and the low viscosity will be, the watery
Closer to
products.
water. Low viscosity,
Correct.
closer to water. Okay.
Yeah.
So we got our underbase, and we know what additives we're going to add to that. So, and you call it the gray 301 or the blocker 301.
Just underbase blocker 301.
Okay. And again, guys, I'm gonna have Jesse just give us a list to put all the info and the information of this video. Now to print over that, what white would you recommend for a good high opacity white? Good starting point.
Well, there's a difference between high opacity whites and underbase whites, okay? Because you want your underbase white to be consistent with the colors that are going to go on top of it, because there's so many different variations of whites out there.
Interesting.
There's yellowish whites, there's bluish whites, there's reddish whites, there's violet whites out there.
This must be for people that are doing high level, like sim process shit,
Correct.
right? See,
Yes.
what we have a tendency to do here is we just flash print our underbases to get, because the whites are so bright that we don't even feel the need to do a secondary screen like for a white overprint. And we found this with water based. Now, this probably isn't best practices, but yeah, I'm just talking like if you're just looking for your bright white, a good bright white.
Okay.
None of the high level simulation stuff, even though.
So for a real simple, straight white that everybody would understand, we call it easy print white.
Okay. Easy print white. Now, what would you recommend this for? Any spot color white stuff? Nothing sim.
Easy print white can be used as an underbase or a highlight white. So if you just want to use one white for everything, easy print white's a good option because it can be printed through a 110 mesh all the way up to a 230 mesh.
Beautiful. Will it hold detail if you are doing some
Absolutely.
sim stuff? Okay.
Yes.
But now, what if what whites are you recommending for more of a premium, high level simulation kind of stuff? At that point, are people actually tinting a certain white to a certain color?
No.
Okay.
No, we've done something very. I want to say it's unique because a lot of manufacturers are afraid of price. Because customers challenge us on price all the time.
Yeah.
But we went out and have a different formulation in that our bluish or optical white is not a tinted white. Okay, it's actually formulated with a product that already comes with that shade in it. Okay, the raw material is already that shade.
Okay.
So we're not tinting our white. It is a natural bluish optical white.
Okay.
Okay, and that's called combat white.
Combat white. Okay.
That is the most optical white that you can find in the market. I want to say it's even better than plastisol.
You know what? It would be, I don't know if you have any resources for this, but some of these things, it starts really going to a very high level of technical process printing. It would be fun, maybe after the show, if you can put me in contact with someone where we could have a big conversation about that. Unless you're the man to have that conversation with as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get it going, right? Because that's a topic for an entire other show, I think. But okay,
we can make a couple of shows here.
Perfect, man. Okay, so we got our combat white for any of the higher level stuff, and then you got your easy print white for any of the other stuff.
Correct. I think those are the two basic whites that everybody really needs to know about.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Now let's talk. I feel like we've covered our bases with white printing, right? Did we miss anything?
Sure.
Guys,
no.
If we did,
just the additives, always recommending additives is very important, especially with the whites and the blockers, because those are the ones that are going to dry the quickest.
Okay, understood. So we're using our fixers, we're using our retarders, these kind of things to keep it wet. And also, you can scoop it out with their retarder and add to it, and you're re-wetting it for use at another date. That's beautiful. Let's talk about colors now, and I feel like we need to talk also about the light, medium, and heavy solids and all this kind of stuff, or whatever you call it. Let's go for it, baby.
So with color, again, there's a lot of confusion out there. As a manufacturer, it's very difficult for us to give printers all the answers.
Right.
Okay. So printers have to be open-minded about using our information as a guide. Okay. Don't use it as this is what the manufacturer recommends. This needs to work 100%. That's not how it's designed. When we put out formulation softwares, okay, we do it with the intention of helping screen printers give them a starting point. Okay, it's not 100% accurate, and it will never be 100% accurate because, you know, like we say, there's 5,000 variables in screen printing.
Yeah, I'm like 9. I can't remember because I've been doing videos for like what seems like forever. But I'm pretty sure I slammed you guys once for your for your mixing shit. I don't know if
I think
if
that's
it
why
was
I showed
you.
up at your shop.
Maybe that's what it was. That's what it was. That's like you confrontational son of a bitch.
No, I wanted to meet you. I want to know who this guy is, you know?
But
And that, I don't know if you recall, but I had just moved to Arizona. So
yeah.
I've been in Arizona for a year now. So this was probably a good 6 to 8 months ago
So
when
that's why you showed up, you son of a bitch.
I happened to move to Arizona, and they told me you were in Arizona. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go pay him a visit and surprise him, you know?
Yeah, you brought me a box of goodies, but clearly you were trying to clear that up. It is interesting though that I have noticed with all the water-based when it comes to pigment systems, they are difficult to make them accurate. There's
Yes.
almost like this process for each shop where you're kind of creating your own way of doing it almost.
Well, Cameron, the issue is that there's different opacities in the bases. And I think that's something that we don't take into consideration. Also, when you're printing directly to fabric and printing over a white underbase, you have to have a different type of base and also a different type of pigment load to cover the brightness of the white base. Okay, and I think it's hard. I'm not going to make excuses. I think all of the manufacturers come across the same thing. I mean, there's over 3,000 colors in the Pantone book.
Yeah.
And if we were to be perfect with every single one of those colors, it would take years for us to do that for all the different type of situations that are out there.
Right.
I mean, look at the squeegee options that we have out there, the mesh options that we have out there, different equipment, manual versus automatic. It's very difficult for us to give an accurate solution. So the best thing we can do, and I think we all do the same thing, is kind of find that medium, point of where pretty much everybody is going to start at, and that's going to be medium squeegee durometers, 160 meshes, 2 white underbases, and even then it's still hard, because we don't know, the quality of their tools, their tensions, but at least we try to find that medium point, where we can help guide everybody and then make the adjustment from there.
Okay.
The important thing as a manufacturer is we do have to offer formulations for printing directly to the fabric and printing over a white underbase, where I feel like some manufacturers may choose one or the other and then use that for all the different scenarios,
Okay.
So if you really look closely at some of these formulas that are for different scenarios, you're going to find that they're the exact same formula,
Right.
We try to change that up a little bit, and we also use our bases as a guide. So if you're going directly to fabric, we try to use the bases that have the most transparency.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we print over a white underbase, we try to use the bases that have the most opacity. Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be low solid acrylic, high solid acrylic.
Okay.
Low solid acrylic, more transparent. High solid acrylic, more opacity.
Gotcha. So with the low solid application, you're allowing yourself to flash and get everything kind of set up, so that when you go with the low solid colors over this nicely laid down base of whites and grays, you're just gonna fly through those colors now because you can kind of wet them. They're low viscosity enough that they're not sticking to the screen, and you can fly through it much more efficiently.
So yes, that makes a lot of sense in that. Right now I was kind of trying to describe more of the formulation software and how that works.
Oh, the software. Yeah, dude, that thing.
Yeah. So we use our low solid acrylics for printing directly to fabric, which would be our RC Neo formulations.
Yeah.
Okay. And then our OW Neo formulations are going to be using more of the stretch series, which is our high solid acrylic.
Low solid. Yeah. What's the
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
So with this information I'm putting out there, what I'm getting at is that if you can relate and understand that printing directly to fabric is more transparent bases and the OWs are more opaque, you can actually create an opaque base with your low solid acrylics by either mixing the clear and the white,
Yep.
okay, or using the matte base.
Yeah. Yeah. Matte base is kind of one of those things. Seems like you're adding to almost everything, right?
Correct.
When you're on the 301 system, which is what we were using almost exclusively.
Yep. So if you want to print the low solid acrylics because you want to have the possibilities of printing wet on wet, you can use the OW formulas, but with the low solid acrylic bases because they're compatible with each other.
Okay.
Okay. The only thing I take into consideration is that you have to work with a little bit more opaque base so that the colors can cover better.
Okay. Understood.
Or the base can help cover better so the colors stay on top.
Right. Okay. Goodness gracious.
Okay.
Yeah. This is where it starts to become complex.
Yeah.
Because you are trying to decide, like, and it's almost even when you're trying to buy into a system with whichever manufacturer, it's like it becomes hard to choose, or it becomes very difficult to know where to start.
Yep.
Right.
So
let's
it
go
takes
there.
a very special type of printer also to have the patience to, get to know the product, understand it, to be successful.
Right.
Okay.
Fair
and
enough.
it's also becoming a culture. Okay. The younger generations in our industry are taking those extra steps and making those extra efforts because they like the solution of water base.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you were going to take a new printer, and we've already talked about our bases, I feel like we really covered that. We know where to start. But you were going to get them set up with their color system, whether it's a mixing system, just based on your experience so far. Where would you start them? And let's use Matsui.
So okay, in the Matsui line, because of the way you're feeling right now, and I could see it in your face,
dude, it starts to go yeah.
I know, but it's important that I explain it because I think it's also important that everybody understands why.
Right.
Okay. Once everybody understands why, then they're going to understand that now we're making it easier. So I don't want to just put the easy out there right off the bat because they're going to, tune out everything else.
Right.
Right. So now to make it easier for the beginners or anybody, just being now introduced to water base, what we did is we've combined the idea of having a low solid and a high solid and creating a medium solid. Okay. So now that medium solid is going to become your multi-purpose base. Okay.
Yeah.
You can go either direction now, and you can still print all the way up to 230 mesh and still have that ability to print wet on wet. Okay.
Yeah.
And that medium solid acrylic base for us is going to be easy print clear, easy print matte, and easy print white, which the white we already know for the underbasing and highlight, and it also can be used as a mixing white.
Okay. Yeah. So that's part of the same system.
Correct. So you see how all this is starting to...
Yeah. So easy print. But you would utilize the easy print clear as your kind of base if you're using the pigment system that you guys have.
Yeah. So whether you're printing directly to fabric or over a white underbase, if it calls out for either a clear 301 or a stretch, we would basically replace that with the easy print clear.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Cool. Yep. Beautiful. I think that's actually a good place to at least start with them. But what are some other options, for the really low viscosity lineup that you guys have? The stuff.
So.
Yeah.
Well, again, the low solids would be your low viscosities or your high mesh printing bases.
Yep.
And then your high solids are going to be more of your open meshes for better coverage.
Okay. Low solids.
But again, we want to keep it simple, and we've actually taken another step in towards that for the beginners. And we are now offering ready-for-use mixing systems in both discharge and medium solid acrylics.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that. That's that Infinity, right?
Infinity is our medium solid acrylic. Yes.
Yeah, and that's the ready-for-use kind of system that you're mixing it more to the Pantone formulations.
Correct.
Which is pretty
That's
cool.
When you can open your book, follow the formulas to, again, a guide to get you close to the color.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we used it. It's pretty accurate most of the time in most situations. But is that is more of that's like the beginner kind of system that you're going to use if you're just trying to get going on stuff. But this will cover probably, what do you say, 70% of the jobs at most?
Absolutely. you know, and you can combine it with the discharge underbase too, which is really nice.
Okay.
You know, so instead of using plastisol, you can use the Infinity over the discharge underbase
Uh-huh.
and get an even softer hand fill.
Beautiful. Yeah,
Okay.
dude. Now in terms of the colors too, they have I feel like we know what model we're going to start with you guys,
Mhm.
but they have different selections of meshes, and you keep mentioning them, but I like just to reiterate stuff to make
Yeah.
sure if someone does tune out or if something goes different that we
worries.
reiterate with them. So like, what are the meshes that you want to be starting with, specifically when you're doing it over and under base with maybe like a wet on wet scenario?
Okay, so colors, we recommend always start at 160.
Okay.
Okay, 160 is a good starting point. If you have multiple colors and you want to go more than 2, 3 colors, then we definitely recommend go up to 200, 230.
Yeah.
So the higher the mesh count, the better the wet on wet printing is going to work.
Okay, wet on wet with these, but you could still use even the Infinity RFU series for that same wet on wet kind of
Absolutely.
thing. And you
Yeah.
have found that it doesn't do any it does pretty well wet on wet.
Yes.
'Cause it's what
Yes, and we've used the system at the trade shows, and also I've used it on manual presses at trade shows. And you know, I've had people come up to me and they think it's plastisol. You know, they're like, "That's water based." You know, at a trade show on a manual.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
Very cool,
So
man.
the Infinity also comes with 2 additives already pre-mixed into it, which is the retarder and the softener.
It
So
does. Okay.
you have both those additives already pre-mixed in there to create that more RFU solution that everybody's looking for.
But so then, really, the only thing you might consider is a fixer,
Just a
either
fixer.
the N or the L, depending on what you're doing with it.
Correct.
Beautiful,
Yes.
man. Yeah. See, it is. Those are the systems that I feel that you have to have just to bring people in.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
And are there all the same drying prevention things? They come down
Yes.
to the additives.
The only thing that we've brought out new
Mm-hmm.
that's very similar to the Infinity system, it's called the Alpha series.
Okay.
Okay. Because what we found in the US, everybody's looking for discharge. So the Infinity system, you cannot discharge, but the Alpha series, you can print directly to light color shirts or white color shirt without the discharge activator.
Okay.
Or you can activate it to print it on black or dark color shirts to give you the same effect as discharge.
Now, could you use that as well as an overprint for your wet on wet over your bases?
Yes.
Yeah. See, that's pretty cool. That is. Yeah. That's kind of like what some of your competitors are doing in that kind of scenario. So smart. Yeah. And that's called the Alpha series.
Alpha series, yes.
So that's one that's going to just make it the most. It may not be the best for every application, but it's the most universal.
Most
option.
universal, correct.
Alpha series. So guys, definitely look into that, man. That's beautiful.
When we brought out these systems, we also brought out a new additive, which is called the Quick Additive. Okay, the Quick Additive is just basically the 3 additives we talked about all in one.
Nice. Which is so it's a fixer.
Fixer, retarder, softener.
And it's at the correct I don't know, percentages for each
Ratios,
one
yes.
ratio. So you just add it at what percent?
Anywhere between 5 to 10%.
And that gives you all the ratios you need to just really to lock it down. There it is, dude. You guys are doing it now.
Yes.
So,
yes, we're trying to make it a little bit easier for the U.S. market.
Yeah, get us in there, man, and then we can get complex, but we got to just get in there first. What was it called again?
Quick Additive.
Quick Additive. Okay. And at the end of this, guys, one more time. I felt like I tried to warn everybody. I have it in my notes here that I even literally said this shit's going to get real technical, so pay attention. But I feel like maybe I left that part out. But it is technical. But I feel like there's just a lot of good information. So this is one of those videos where it probably even deserves a second listen to go through and try to understand that stuff. And I don't want to shy away from any of the technical stuff either. So if you felt like we glossed over any of that, especially with all the different systems, let's hit it again if you feel like we glossed over any of it. Did you? Did you feel like we missed anything?
No, I mean, I think we have a lot of information out there that, that has been a big question with water-based printing. I think the most important, I guess, information that everybody needs to hear is why. Why water-based? You
Yep.
know, that's something we didn't talk about today.
There we go.
And you know, we did touch a little bit on maybe some of the brands uh, demanding it. But in the U.S., you know, why water-based? Why should a plastisol printer go to water-based? And you know, I'm not here to convince everybody to go 100% water-based. That's not my goal here today, and that's not what we're trying to do. I think water-based is important to just add some more to your arsenal of offerings, and also to be able to create new business opportunities, because the customers are getting more educated. They are coming in asking for softer hand fill. They're challenging the printers on the hand fill.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so this is going to open up that opportunity to be able to offer a product that maybe they're not offering right now. In some cases, you might see that there is some advantages in making your business more profitable as well.
Right.
You know, and that's what printers really need to hear is how can I make more money? And water-based can be one of those solutions. Maybe not at the beginning because there's a learning curve, but once you get good at it, it gets very, very interesting in how profitable a business can be by using water-based.
Yeah. And I think the why, another why, and it really is the main one, is from my experience, and we've been using a lot of white, just white water based. The hand is the final product is that's just a night and day difference. Like the real why is, dude, the end product is in my opinion, maybe there are plastisol printers that just do it so well, but in my opinion, the end product is a smoother, cleaner, less fibrillated print. Across just pretty much across the board from what I've seen. So I think that's the real why, is if you're trying to put out a premium product, water-based is the way to go.
And Cameron, a lot of plastisol printers, they won't even admit to it, but there's a lot of them out there heat tapping the plastisol to make it softer.
That's what I had to do. Yeah.
And how much does that cost, you know?
The time is crazy. The time,
exactly.
yeah. They're either doing the thing which I made a whole video on. It's like it's a complete workaround, but they're doing the roller heat squeegee shit, or they're heat pressing them after the production run.
That's where my biggest concern is. I feel a lot of businesses are losing out, you know, on profit by doing that. You know, doing it in the automatic, if they have that tool, is great. It works, but not everybody has that tool or you know that ability.
That's right.
So that's where water-based can help, you know, a lot of print shops.
And I can speak from experience with that. Just the difference in feel and texture and hand of, even if it's just the water-based, the base of the whole thing, it's just a night and day difference. It changes the game. Now I actually wanted to talk to you about some stuff, and then we're going to go on to the Q&A, but this is I've heard mixed reviews about it. I've just been experimenting like crazy with all kinds of different shit. And one of the things that I've been doing, and of course there's always backlash, but I did my due diligence on it, was a mixture of the HSAs with plastisol overprints. And I've been informed at night and day that you can't do it; it'll break down, fall apart. But I've done the wash test, and it holds up. Have you seen this? Do you advise against it? If so, why? Also, I saw somebody mentioning here about discharging with the base. Why well, we'll go into that in a minute. Let's talk about the first one first.
So yeah, that's something I didn't mention, and you know, I got to be very careful as a manufacturer what I recommend.
Sure.
You know, but we have had some success in some shops that are printing on, especially on polyester and tri-blends, because that's where everybody's looking for the softer hands and the breathable ink, especially out here in Arizona. You know, it's so hot out here that nobody wants to be wearing a big patch on a polyester shirt, you know, a heavy patch. So we have experimented, and we've had success using our underbase blockers with a stretch type white, easy print white, and plastisol on top. So, you know, there's going to be scenarios where you can't use Discharge as an underbase. So the next option would be using a high solid acrylic as an underbase. I think some of our competitors are starting to introduce a clear underbase.
Interesting.
You know, for plastisol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that just to kind of like almost to do a matting kind of thing, right? You're matting that down. That's what I found, and I kind of feel like an asshole sometimes, and I refuse to recommend it as well, because anytime I put it out there, there's a little bit of backlash about adhesion issues. But I have experienced none of them, and in some cases, the adhesion I'm just gonna put it out there. It almost seems better. Yeah. For some strange reason.
good quality goes hand in hand.
Mm.
So if you're using a good quality plastisol, it should work perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Especially your performance type plastisols that are low cure plastisols. Those are designed to fix at lower temperatures
Yeah.
and have stronger bonding properties.
Yeah.
So, I'm a big fan of those type of plastisol inks working hand in hand with a high solid acrylic as an underbase.
Can we talk about that? You mentioned it, just brings up another question. In terms of low curing, when you low cure whatever, it is a chemical additive that creates some kind of a bonding or something happens. What is it exactly that's happening with these low cures?
So again, a lot of them will use a catalyst. There's a low cure additive,
Uh-huh.
in plastisol as well. Or some of the inks might already have some type of a low cure additive in them already. And it's just exactly that. It's just so that the ink that is manufactured to set at a certain temperature can actually set at a lower temperature than the normal recommendation.
Yeah.
So that's all it really is. It's exactly that. It's a low cure solution.
But it is just some kind of crazy chemical reaction that happens that makes it cure faster.
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to say it's heat activated.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it activates at a certain temperature.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Anything else? I want to dive into the Q&A, dude. We've been chatting for a long time. First off, we are going to do a follow-up to this and maybe dive into even more technical stuff, but I want to try to make sure that we don't overload everybody. Anything just while I'm going through this and we start the Q&A that we didn't cover that you would like to just tackle real quick?
Cameron, there's probably a few things we missed through there. There's a lot of things, going to be a lot of questions. I'm really curious about the question and answer. I think that's what's more important.
Yeah.
Because, depending whether we're giving this information correctly or not, there still might be some questions. And I guess any of the listeners here that might not have thought of that question can learn from that as well. Again, because of all the variables we have in screen printing, it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah.
But most of the time, again, I'm here to give some theories and some recommendations.
Okay.
And they have to put it into application,
And we'll do another video if you feel like after this one, if you're like, hey man, there's some other stuff I'd like to talk about. Anytime
Okay.
you come up with some new stuff. And one more thing, guys, if you have questions for him that we don't get to in the chat or whatever, you can always ask the question in the comment of this video after we've gone live. I'm sure Jesse would have no problem coming in and chiming in on those comments as well.
Absolutely.
So just remember, if you have a question, we will answer it. We'll do our best to.
So special effects is one that we'll save for later.
Let's definitely do that, man. Let's give people time to marinate with the entry, and then we'll start digging in and we'll start going details.
Cool.
Chronic Designs is asking, since it's so dry here in Arizona, is a humidifier recommended or necessary?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of shops here in Arizona actually have swamp coolers,
Yeah.
and those swamp coolers put out some good humidity as well. What's important in Arizona is that everybody has a tendency of leaving their doors open with the swamp cooler on. I've never understood that, and keeping the doors closed and keeping wind from coming in to your shop also helps keep the ink from evaporating.
Well, we didn't talk about that. What is the recommended humidity level in the shop?
On the low end, I've seen it perform really well, about 30%.
Okay.
And at the high end, we want it to be right around 60%.
Okay.
I think that's a good kind of window.
So you really be shooting for that. And this is just a side note. I had a guy, the dude that does Permaset Aqua.
Uh-huh.
He even mentioned like putting carpets around your press and it's crazy, but he said he's seen it work because the surface area, just wetting the carpets down around your press will actually raise your humidity levels around the screens. It's an interesting little secret.
Well, I for a long time have recommended putting 5-gallon pails right underneath your flashes.
There you go. Yeah, just because it's going to cause the reaction,
Correct.
right? See, there we go. That's a beautiful question. Thank you for asking, Chronic. I think he bailed on us, the son of a bitch. We'll get him later. Liberty Graphics. Well, he's already saying right here. He wants you to know and me to know that you're going to need to come back because there's a lot more shit we need to cover. But he's just saying make sure to bring Jesse back for a second show. Chronic Designs is also asking, what do you think of cryo coat? What is CryoCoat? CryoCoat's a brand of emulsion, I think. I think it's
I think it's a
Ryanette's.
private label from Ryanette, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, again, I'm sure Ryanette's working with a reputable manufacturer. Ryanette's a great company, and they make every effort to educate everyone. I think a lot of us, have underestimated what Ryanette has done for the industry, and Ryan Moore himself. I mean, I've been fortunate to work for Ryan Moore myself, and I've learned a lot from him, and he's really kept this industry alive even through the recession.
Yeah, that's true.
And we have to always appreciate that, and make sure that we respect that.
While not kissing his ass too much.
No, but I do see a lot of in our industry. We're a small industry.
Yeah.
And we have to work together to make this work.
I agree, and he does, man. Like you got to give it to him. But Cryo, do you know what manufacturer actually that label is? You have any idea? Hi. Do you know who CryoCoat's manufacturer? It doesn't matter. As far as you know, it works.
Yeah, I do not. But the point I was trying to make is, and I hope Ryanette does a good job at it, is being able to support the product. That's the key thing. If you're going to private label the product, you have to be able to support it. And that's why I push for working with the brands that are the true manufacturers, because that's what they're experienced to do, is support their product.
Yeah, and the ones that are the core manufacturers they're agile enough that if something comes up that they need to make, they can make it as well, right? Like Marukami or Sadi or Ulano.
Correct. If there's any issues, problems, being able to adjust the formulations to make it work better, improve it. Yes.
That makes sense, man. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, this one I didn't ask you, and maybe you can talk to this, but this is from Hunter Strine. He's wondering, maybe he missed it, but what's the best coating technique for water-based? Like in terms of stencil thickness, any of these things that need to be addressed?
That's a great question, and we didn't address it. There is a lot of coating techniques out there, and because we're not using automatic coaters, Cameron, between you and I, we can have different EOMs on the emulsion if we coat the exact same way. You might coat it a little bit faster. The type of emulsion you're using plays a big role. But what we're trying to achieve is a 6 to about 15%, EOM on the screen. A lot of people don't have the tools for that, Yeah. So if you're using a photopolymer, normally we would be right around a 1 and 1 or 1 and 2 coat, okay? Where with a dual cure, you might be more closer to a 2 and 2 coat.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, yeah, and we've been experimenting with it for a while. And is EOM emulsion on or over mesh?
Over mesh, yes.
So,
emulsion over mesh, because you want to have a little bit of emulsion over the mesh so that you get a good deposit and good clean edges.
Yeah.
You don't want the mesh to interfere with your edges.
We've experimented with it. I've even done videos where we do 2 and 2, we do 2 and 1, and it does just seem like 2 and 1's 2 on the outside, 1 on the inside seems to be where we've found works fine, right? But I don't really know what the actual millimeter thickness would be if you brought out like a micrometer or something. It's hard to know.
Saudi sells a thickness gauge.
They do.
I believe you can even find it on Amazon. And it's pretty reasonably priced. It's actually a really good tool for every shop to have.
We ought to do a video on that. Maybe have Saudi reach out to me and we can do a little info piece on something like that. Yeah, cool. So just 2 and 1 seems to be a fine solution, right?
Yeah, 1 and 1, 2 and 1,
2 and 1. Okay.
Yeah.
But with water-based, you don't have to go to these crazy stencil thicknesses to try to build up a huge base of. Okay. You're not doing like a high density print or any crazy stuff like that.
No. And if anything, too thick of a stencil might work against you, because the ink is going to want to have a tendency of drying on the walls of the emulsion.
Okay.
So you got to be very careful with that.
Good to know.
Because it will build up and it's harder to clean as well.
Okay. Very nice.
Okay.
Yeah. More people saying, "Yo, he better come back, dude." So you're a smashing hit so far. Just started dipping my toes into screen printing. Any tips? I mean, guys, I labeled this as a tips video, and I'm telling you, man, if you go through and listen to it, There is a ton of tips, one after the other after the other. But we didn't make a tips list that lasted 4 minutes. This is a conversation with Jesse. The tips are there, and I'll go through and try to do maybe like some kind of time signatures for the main ones as we go through this. And you know what else? What we'll do here in the future is Jesse and I will make an actual short, quick tip video for you guys that really dives into all this.
I'm surprised nobody has asked about cleanup.
They probably have. I'm just kind of going through this. I'm working
Okay.
my way down the chat here. It's hard to catch them all. Let's talk about that. While I'm looking for another one, though, let's talk about cleanup because it sucks.
Yeah, no, and setup. You know, I think that's where every screen printer has the biggest problem because they're so used to printing the base and then leaving it there and going to the next color when you're registering. With the water base, you can't do that. You know, you got to print and clean. You got to clean that image out. And what I am recommending nowadays is, I don't know if you recall or you've seen those little small little sponges for washing your car.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they come in the buckets.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that those would work really well for cleaning up water base because they're absorbent, you know. And I see a lot of guys using these towels and t-shirts, and because they're not absorbent, it kind of extends everything out and it doesn't really soak everything in.
Yeah.
But using a sponge, 2 sponges, one on the bottom, one on top at the same time in a circular motion, is going to help clean out the image area a lot quicker.
Yep.
Okay. And
you can
you're
even
only
keep
using water.
You can keep a bucket of water below you and just change.
Exactly.
That's smart. It's funny that shit. I like to think that I'd never even thought of that. Never even thought of it. That's smart.
So, you know, that's a really nice tip for setup because, you know, it takes time to register.
Yeah.
So if you leave the ink flooded on the screen, it's going to dry on you. Okay.
Yeah.
It's designed to dry, and if it's not moving, it's going to dry.
Yeah.
So only during setup do you need to push the ink back and clean out the image area and then go to the next screen.
Right.
Okay?
And with us, we've gotten so crazy about it. We pretty much don't even ink up until we're like 99% sure that damn
Correct.
thing is in, man.
Yep.
But so even in the rare occurrence, you're talking about 2 sponges, bucket of water, squish, 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 wipe, 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 clean, clean, clean. That's very smart. I don't know how the hell come we haven't thought. We're running through 1,000 paper towels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Love it. Sponges and buckets of waters, guys. Beautiful. Smart. Very clever. I was listening to you and I wasn't looking through the other questions. God damn it. They're really pushing this water-based initiative lately. So this is like a naysayer. So Beard Booze, yeah, for some reason they're really pushing this water-based initiative lately. It's a hard sell for him. And I think that this is a question a lot of Plastisol's printer has. And I feel like you kind of answered it. Like the obvious answer to me is the quality it's 100 times better.
Correct.
But why obviously other than business, why push this water-based initiative? It's not easier to do. Why is it important?
Well, look, there's a lot of plastisol printers that are very good printers, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And their quality gets very close to water-based. Mm-hmm. And those are the guys that really challenge this the most. You know, there's going to be at some point where they are going to take the PVC away from the inks. So it might not happen now, and I know people have been talking it for years, but it's going to come around. But I feel that it's more of a responsibility, you know, in our industry. You know, I'm not saying water-based is 100% safe. Mm-hmm. You know, it's still considered a chemical. It's still a solvent. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it does help eliminate some of the other chemicals you use in your shop that could be, you know, damaging your employees, you know, that are going to go on the garment. Mm-hmm. So it's more of a I want to say individual responsibility to look for safer products to work with. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm not saying that this is 100% solution, but it is a little bit better solution than what we currently have right now, if that makes any sense.
That makes perfect sense. And from an eco standpoint, that's a thing. And then we're getting trolled a little bit by a longtime viewer, so I'm going to just call him out. He's saying that this is a Matsui sponsored event. Jesse, did you give me did I even get $1 for this?
No, he didn't. And also, if they go back and look in the video, you know, I said that, you know, I'm on the water-based side. Yeah. You know, I work for the industry. I get paid by Matsui, but I work for the industry. Anybody who knows me, they know I'll help them, whether it's Matsui, it's Wilflex, Rutland, Magna, Virus. I'm friends with everybody. I really want to make this more of an educational. I appreciate you asking me about Matsui, and I like the opportunity to talk about Matsui.
Right.
But I think you and I both are trying to educate on water base, and this is what it's really about.
And I think I asked for specific models from you guys or for specific SKUs from you guys, but it's not because I want to market particularly Matsui. I ask so that people know where to start their research from. Like they know that they can look for the whatever it is, the Alpha series, and they can figure out what the solid content is. It's just a place to start, guys. You start with Matsui, but you can branch out to whatever branch or whatever brand you want to work with.
And also Matsui has been around in the U.S. for 30 years now.
Right.
So Matsui is not as a brand or as a name, it's not a new product to the U.S. market. Matsui's actually been around, for a very long time in Japan since 1911. Not only with water-based inks, but other types of products, industrial products. So if it's coming out as a Matsui type of blog, that's not our intentions. No, I'm here to educate. If they want to ask me about just water-based in general, I'd love to answer any questions.
And at the end of the day, man, the reason that I talk about water-based all the time, guys, and even the reason I call Jesse in is because he's just a knowledge base. I'm converting over to it solely for I'm getting rid of Discharge because don't want to get cancer. But I'm converting over to HSAs because, bottom line, the print is better. The print is better. When you learn how to do it, it is cleaner, it's smoother, it's got a higher fashion feel to it. Everything about it is better. That's the real push. So if you guys want to stick with plastisol, go ahead, and then we'll see you. We'll see you at the finish line. You know what I'm saying? Got triggered. Got full-blown triggered by this guy. Yep, not reading it. I'm about to get blocked. Let me see what we got here. Jason. Okay, yeah, this was the question I was asking you earlier. What is the trick to using Discharge as an underbase for plastisol? All the plastisols of his, it fell off in the wash. I think you said it earlier, but let's reiterate it.
Yeah, making sure that you get that chemical reaction to happen before the plastisol lands on it is very important. Plastisol, if you hit the correct cure times with plastisol, there's no reason why it should be falling out.
Other than maybe, was he going through too low of a mesh on that discharge?
There's too much moisture. There's probably too much moisture on that discharge, and it's affecting the curing time because keep in mind, if you introduce moisture to your dryers, it's going to lower the temperature of your dryer.
Right.
And I don't think a lot of printers take that into consideration, that moisture is lowering the temperature in your dryer.
It does by 10 degrees, 10, 15 degrees. It literally drops it. And it's different, but when you start going, as the water starts evaporating into the elements, you'll just watch the temperatures drop.
Yeah, so it might be dropping it low enough to where it's not curing it properly.
Gotcha. Beautiful answer. So definitely check your meshes. You need to go up to a higher mesh count.
Correct.
But other than that, did you say he should probably be low curing that plastisol?
No.
Okay.
No.
Sorry.
No, absolutely not. Okay. You have to hit the recommended temperature for plastisol. Absolutely.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, man. So Jason, I would say more than likely, dude, if you're a plastisol printer, you're just used to printing through too low of a mesh count, and you're not getting that stuff evacuated out of there enough. Dude, this fucking guy. I got someone gun block right now. Gun block him. Let's see what else we got here. This is from Elite Pro Graphics. Could we use water-based in car? That was a question I was supposed to ask you too, dude. So I have your guys' the spot black.
Okay.
And I printed boxes with it, and I've been doing it for forever because in my mind it's a water-based acrylic. Mm-hmm. Is there any reason why you can't print on paper? Does most acrylic water-based? Let's stop talking about Matsui specifically, but
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
So water-based is an organic product. It's a natural product, and it will actually work with any type of natural substrate. So paper being natural, as long as there's not a coating on there, it should work perfectly fine. We have actually we have customers that use our pigments on concrete, believe it or not,
No
for
shit.
concrete staining, and cabinet staining as well for woodworking.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of areas where you can use water based as long as it's not coated prior to the application. If that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect. That makes perfect sense. It's good to know because like I just did all my boxes. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's good, but then I was asking myself, and I was like, well, maybe it's not okay. But I'm gonna confirm it with you. Does it? I guess it does raise an interesting question. Does it need to heat set when you're?
No, water based will air dry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Yeah. So there's your answer, guys. We can absolutely use this stuff on. What about even the infinity stuff? All this?
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
but we like to use a 301 series because you can go higher mesh counts,
Okay.
so you can lay down less ink so it dries quicker.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So definitely probably stick with the 301 for higher mesh counts, faster dry times. Thanks, man. What else we got here? There's lots of questions. I'm running through them. Jason ends. Oh, I already did this one. Sorry. Sorry. Don't get the shocker. I can't see anything else here, guys. Definitely, if you have questions, hit me at the print life. In the meantime, I feel like that's. Oh, here we go. Inking's ink. Does the gray block have a negative effect on hand since it gets you on the top of the garment quicker, or not really?
No, actually, the nice thing about water base, the more ink you lay down, the smoother the surface, making it feel softer.
That's exactly right. And my experience in speaking from, and I'm gonna say I've been using Comment White from Green Galaxy. The stuff is just smoother, man. It's just smoother. That's all there is to it. So yeah, I would challenge all of you guys to just pick up some water-based ink and start printing with it. The final product is 1,000 times more premium, in my opinion. I feel like that's it, man. You're still getting lots of thumbs up. We're getting trolled by one some bitch, but other than that, man, you're just giving us a ton of great information. Can we contact Jesse? I'd like to talk to him about using it as a wood stain. I'm a woodworker. Well, let's just have you answer that right here. I'm sure Jesse has no problems contacting him. You are the Matsui rep, right?
Yes, yes,
So, but I don't know. Can you use it as a wood stain? You said you
yes,
can print
absolutely.
with it.
As,
Yeah.
as long as the wood is not coated.
Okay, as long as the wood's not coated.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Maybe you should get a humidifier. Awesome, man. Well, I don't know why the hell, man. I got my shit together, but I just got triggered by one little troll, dude. But I
Well,
feel like you just made a killer series of really strong information for all of us. If you guys have any questions at all, man, for him, he'll gladly chime in and he'll answer them in the chat or I'm sorry, in the comments of this video. Other than that, though, this is the plug opportunity. So, Jesse, you got Matsui, you got all these different things you're doing. Let's get to plugging. And then also, I will, of course, as you guys know, I'll link all of the Matsui website and all that stuff in the description of this video as well. Plug away, baby.
well, Cameron, I think the important thing here is giving the information out there, putting the information out there how to contact me. You know that I'm pretty accessible, even though I'm traveling a lot, but I'm one of those guys that just likes to work, and I like to help people.
Yeah.
So, if you go to the Matsui website in the contact us or about us, you can find all my information. The website is matsui-color.com.
Okay.
And feel free to reach out to me, send me an email. My cell phone is on there. My home number is not on there, but my cell phone is my home.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely, if it's a quick text message, I use WhatsApp,
Cool.
Skype, so I'm very accessible. Sometimes I answer pretty quick. Sometimes I answer really late at night.
Yeah.
So just have a little patience with me, but definitely here to help out.
Yeah, and I will say that whenever I've had questions in regards to these things, you've always picked up and answered. You're on the ball with that.
Well,
and I
you
think
guys are running a business,
Yeah.
So it's job security for me.
There you
I like
go.
to tell everybody, so if you're successful, you know, a lot of us will be successful too in being able to help you guys as well.
Beautiful. Hey, Vega 23 he just joined in. Hey, where were you, dude? But he's just saying shout out to Jesse. Hey, one more quick question from Art /Random. Can you print on poly bags with? Is there any water-based solution to print on plastics and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've printed on some of the poly bags that hold like the cleats and stuff like that. We do use a blocker, an underbase blocker, and then a stretch white on top. You know,
so the stretch white will adhere to these kind of things, though. Interesting.
With the fixer.
With the fixer.
And, yeah, and the catalyst even better because a lot of these poly bags are sensitive to heat, so you might want to use the catalyst. It has better biting properties.
Okay.
And you can cure it at a lower temperature.
Is the catalyst, and again, we always have to reference plastisol because it's what we know, but it's very similar to what you would do with the nylon jackets with the catalyst on plastisol. Yeah. It just creates that chemical bond that's very similar to a help me out here, god damn it.
Nylabond, like a nylabond, or
yeah, it becomes like it hardens it in some strange way. Okay.
Now, Cameron, something new for us that I just seen last week. We are going to be releasing a water-based product that will be compatible with waterproof nylon jackets.
Nice. Okay.
Okay, so that's something interesting that I'm really looking forward to. Also, you know, a lot of people have been asking me about heat transfers. That's also something that we're going to be releasing here pretty soon.
With water-based?
Yes.
Interesting.
With water-based.
Okay.
So that's something we can talk about and you know, later on, but just want to throw it out there.
And other people are asking in the chat. I'm kind of skipping these now because I don't want this to go on for 2 hours. But people are also very much interested in some of the special effect options that we have within the water-based community. So we'll do a whole other video on that, or we'll do a whole other live stream on that. But thank you guys for joining in, Vega. Oh, see, there's so much more stuff here. We already answered this. Beneficial, of course. So with a dryer, let's just talk about the dryer real quick, and then this is the last question. Forced air is ideal.
Correct.
We didn't really talk about this, though, because you gave me some tips on this early on. But what are some options if you don't have a forced air dryer to just get air movement in there? I mean, get air movement in there. Actually, I would just go with the fixer out. Yeah.
You know, the catalyst type fixer. So that you don't have to worry about that. The problem with not having air in there is that you're going to create more humidity inside there, so it's going to take longer to dry.
Right. And so there are issues. This is a thing, and this is going to be extremely controversial because it messes with your air temps in the dryer, but possibly fanning through the tunnel or something like that just to try to push some of the humidity out. But you may have to jump your temps way up when you do this kind of thing.
Correct.
So it depends on the dryer. And
I've seen shops, Cameron, where they actually implement a flash cure unit at the end of the tunnel.
Smart, yeah.
You know?
Okay. Yeah.
So that they get that kind of evaporation out of there and kind of finish the drying process at the end.
Beautiful.
So
you can get creative.
It just depends on what tools you have available.
Perfect. Jason's asking when part 2 is to be announced, man. You got to stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for hanging with us. I'm going to make sure that we get Jesse back on again. There's a lot of questions. You guys be sure to queue up your questions for the next time we have him on, and we'll answer them all for you. I would just like to say thank you to Jesse. I don't even know what camera to look at, dude. I know you're a busy man. It's the end of the day. You're probably ready to call it one, but thank you so much for tuning in here and just hitting us with a lot of information. We're going to try to organize through it and sort it out.
Yeah, I can't wait to be back, and definitely I'll try to keep an eye on the questions and try to answer them the best I can, and you know, to help you know, those that are interested. We can't convince everybody, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, even having 5 or 10% water base in your shop is not a bad deal.
That's beautiful. Yeah, man. Thank you so much for being here. And final note, guys, in terms of water-based printing, I just want to drive this home. If you haven't used it before, you need to try it out, and you're going to see, without a shadow, I don't give a shit what brand you use. I'm not partial to Matsui or any of these other ones. I like them because I deal with them a lot more, but the print is completely different. So just do yourself a favor, get some stuff in, do some prints, figure it out. Once you realize you're getting a nice opaque white and it's smoother, it's cleaner, and it's just more premium, you're going to want to make the transition like every other person will want to. Because at the end of the day, it's giving a nicer product to your clients, which means they're going to come back, which means you're going to get more business, you're going to build a name for yourself, and your business will continue to grow. Or you don't do it and you can get you can get left behind while the rest of us keep moving forward. To the rest of the fam, thank you guys so much for tuning in, man. I know you guys are busy as well. I know it's a little bit weird. You got to kind of stop your work to come tune in and watch this show. So I appreciate you being here and hanging out with us. Make sure to ask any residual questions in the comments at the end of this video. Jesse's going to tune in and answer those as well as me if I can. Thank you guys so much. We will see you next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Arizona time.